Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Every now and then one of those stories crosses my desk that just, I don't know why, it brings a smile to my face. And it's just one of these strange stories that the headline pretty much tells you all you need to know. It's not going to get you upset. It's not like something really, really bad happened. But you start thinking about it, it's probably a story here. So from roadandtrack.com, and that's an entity, I know people who work there. I wrote for them for a while. British driver caught using license that expired 49 years ago. Can I see your driver's license? Sure. Guy hands over some antique, looks like the Magna Carta. The driver forfeited his Range Rover, which is the more painful part of the equation, to the police after being pulled over for an expired registration. Emmett White wrote this. Renewing your driver's license, of course, is not always a fun time, although it's gotten easier over the years, at least in America. Don't know about Britain. Sometimes you got to stand in line. You have to endure the scorn of the Department of Motor Vehicles' finest bureaucrats. And walking out a bit poorer is never fun. But it's something that motorists generally take seriously. So if you are licensed in England or the general area, please let me know how hard it is to get your license, whether it's a pain or not. In America, nowadays, a lot of this stuff can be done online. A lot of it can be done online. Obviously, you got to go in and get a new picture taken, but you can schedule those. At least in Michigan, you can schedule them. You get in and out. And the last few times I've been to the Secretary of State's office, which is our DMV, I got in and out like nothing. I mean, it's just in and out. It's just no big deal. In fact, I had a situation where I lost a title to a vehicle. This is a few years ago. There are Secretary of State's offices where you can go in and get a title the same day, a quick title. And I actually got in and out and did that too. And I was like, I just got a new title for a car, and I was that long? Crazy. However, it seems one United Kingdom driver hasn't quite been up to the task of keeping his license valid, because the driver's license that he provided was from 1975. 1975. So ask yourself where you were in 1975, and that's back when this guy's driver's license was still good. According to the BBC, police in Lancashire say they pulled over a man in his 60s on December 30th, 2024, after spotting an expired Ministry of Transport inspection sticker on his Land Rover, Range Rover, Vogue Edition, third generation. So it's an older vehicle, but it's got an expired sticker on it. Upon further inspection, officers realized the driver had also been driving without a valid license for 49 years. So the police specialist writing about this said, when you knowingly drive around without an MOT, which of course is the Ministry of Transport inspection sticker, don't be surprised if we conduct further checks. This driver was found to have been driving for 49 years with an expired provisional license. The vehicle was seized and the driver was reported. Now, the provisional license, that's a new one. I'm going, wait, I hadn't seen that word yet in this story. So I looked it up, and the provisional license, I think, is the equivalent of either a learner's permit or the graduated licenses we have now in Michigan, for instance. When you first get licensed, they give you a license that you can only drive under certain circumstances. But it looks like the provisional license, though, is in order to take driving lessons or driving courses, meaning that it's more like the learner's permit. The learner's permit, which says, okay, here's a learner's permit. You can drive under extremely limited circumstances, perhaps with an adult in the car who is licensed, or perhaps with an instructor, And so it says here that he had an expired provisional license from 49 years ago, implying that he never got the full license. So the question I have, and we don't know this, is was he driving the entire time? Was he driving occasionally? Or perhaps he hadn't driven in 49 years. We don't know that. That's the one thing we don't know. And I'd be fascinated to know this. I also don't know where Lancashire is or how big of a town it is. And it might be that he's out in the middle of nowhere, and for him to jump in the old, Land Rover, Range Rover, and like drive down to the pub and back might not be that big of a deal. But on the other hand, it might be that no, he's got the car and once a year he pulls it out and takes it for a drive. I don't know. So back to the story by Emmett White. As much as we dread any trip to the DMV, or in the case of our UK readers, this kind of story is an important reminder to check up on your driver's license status, even if it has been less than 5 decades since your last trip through the Kafkaesque machinery of the driving place. Kafkaesque is one of my favorite words. I use it from time to time. After all, dealing with your own versions of Patty and Selma Bouvier may not be much fun, but it sure beats having to explain yourself to a judge. And of course, Patty and Selma Bouvier are Homer Simpson's sisters-in-law who work for the DMV in Springfield in The Simpsons. And of course, the interesting thing about them is they're just surly. They're not necessarily real bureaucrats in that sense. They're just very surly and unpleasant to deal with. But the real question here, like I said, is the guy hadn't been legally driving for 49 years. And they pulled him over now because they saw the expired sticker and said, oh, you got a license? Said, sure. And he hands over the expired one from 49 years ago. And all I wonder is, has the guy been driving all along, or did he just decide to go for a drive for the first time in 49 years? And that's the other thing. And a lot of Americans, and I'm not being insulting here, but it's actually just something that a lot of Americans aren't familiar with. And that is, if you are an American and you live in the Midwest, for example, you live in Michigan, you live in Wisconsin, you live in Iowa, for you to get around without a car and actually have a job and get to your job and live your life and do your stuff without a car, it's extremely difficult. But there are portions of England, London in particular, where you can get around without a car just fine. The tube, what they call the subway, the train system, all that stuff, you can get around a lot. And I've known people who've lived in London, didn't own cars. And so now this guy, like I said, he's out in Lancashire, and I don't know where that is and whether or not there's any mass transit out that way. But they've also got buses, and they've also got other things. And so the idea that in America, everybody's got a car. Nobody walks in L.A. You kind of have to. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've got subways in New York, for instance, and other places, and they do get you around. And there are some places like that. But I think the vast majority of Americans live in places where without a car, you're seriously handicapped. I don't know if this guy lives in such a place or not, because that probably would answer it. And I'm willing to bet you that right now there are already people in England who are hammering away going, Steve, here's the situation, Lancashire, and yes, he can get by without a car, or no, he couldn't get by without a car. That probably will answer the question. But of course, the part of the story that hurts is they took his car. They seized his car, presumably because with the expired sticker and the expired driver's license, it probably didn't have a tag, or if it had a tag, the tag was an antique. Which again would be a sign that there's something wrong. Now, one thing you should know, many states, including Michigan, will allow you to, do I have one on display? No, I don't. I do not have one on display. Hang on. Many states, like Michigan, will let you buy an old plate, and this is a novelty. This is not a real plate, but will let you buy an old plate. And if you can find an old plate from a ways back that's not being, the numbers aren't being used now, you can get them to register that for your vehicle. And so let's suppose that this is a real plate, okay? And you owned a 1962 automobile, a classic autos 1962. You could get this plate registered to your car. So the mere fact that you've got an old plate on your car wouldn't be a giveaway that your car is bad, because that could be legal. But the car would have a sticker on it to indicate that it's current. That's what the police be looking for. And so I've actually heard of people being pulled over before because the cops says, hey, I noticed your sticker was expired. And the stickers change color every year. And so they get good at spotting those when they go, hey, that's the wrong color sticker. So the guy's car was impounded. We don't know anything else about that. And in fact, we don't even know necessarily what all he got written up for, other than he did get pulled over and he presented the license and they towed his vehicle. So it's got a sad ending in that way. But like I said, we don't know much more about it, but it's one of those stories that the headline catches your attention and you go, that's interesting. So roadandtrack.com reports that Emmett White wrote it. British driver caught using license that expired 49 years ago. A provisional license. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Do you know it was a year ago today